In this video, we're going to build Laravel REST API from scratch, implement authentication using Sanctum, and deploy final application on production environment with custom domain and SSL. Hello everyone, I'm the Codeholic and welcome to my channel. On this channel, I do coding tutorials and challenges, as well as some tips, tricks, and advices. If that sounds interesting to you, consider subscribing. First of all, let's have a look at the demo of the project we are going to build. Our API is secured using Sanctum personal access tokens. In order us to be able to make requests in our API, we need to first register and log in and create personal access token. So on the top right side, right here, we see login and registration. I'm going to register right now with some dummy user. As soon as I'm registered, I'm also logged in. Right here, I see I don't have any personal access tokens yet. I see this create new token button. I'm going to click on that, which shows me new token form. I'm going to call main, for example. That's the name of my token, and click on generate. This is my token. I need to copy and save this somewhere because I won't be able to see this token in the future anymore. It is saved in the database as an encrypted value. Okay, so I can create as many tokens as I want. Just go to see all the tokens, create new token, and I'm going to call the token as postman token. Okay, and here's my token. The first one I lost. I just didn't copy. But I took the second one, I go back, and I can delete the first one because I don't use. Right here we have last used column, which will be populated as soon as we use the token. Okay, I copied the token, but what I need to do after that? So I'm going to now open Postman. In the Postman, I prepared a couple of endpoints. So these are the endpoints we're going to implement. So we see get albums, create an album, get a single album, update an album, delete album, get images, get a single image, and I'm not going to read all these. Okay, so we have all these endpoints, but in order to be able to make requests, we need to pass that token. If I just try to make requests without the token, I'm going to get unauthorized. Okay, I need to pass the token. I'm going to go in the authorization and right here, click on type and choose bearer token. After that, I'm going to see right here a token field, which is now pre-populated with some value. I can delete that and I'm going to paste my token, whatever I copied. Okay, I'm going to make request now and I will be able to return to get some data. The data is basically empty because I don't have any albums created yet. But the data is in the following format. I get the data, I get links and some meta. The meta is information about the pagination for my request. I see per page right here. I see totally there are zero albums and everything around the albums. Okay, but I don't want to copy and paste this token for all requests. That's why in the Postman I can do this once on the parent of all these requests, which is a collection. So I'm going to change the type inherit auth from parent. And then on the collection, I'm going to edit that. I'm going to go in the authorization and right here I can choose bearer token and I can paste my token right here, save that, make sure you hit Ctrl and S or just click on the button, save button, and then go in the albums and make request and you should be able to get the same empty result. But that basically means that we have successfully passed the token. If I go in the authorization section and I append one at the end of this token and save that and make request once again, I will see unauthorized request because my token is not actually valid. Okay, right here, before I pasted the token, you see that curly braces token. That's a variable. And I can configure variables on my collection. Okay, I'm going to go in the variables section right here and I have two variables, base URL and token. The base URL is the URL on which all requests are made. Every request right here are made on base URL. Right here in the URL, you see base URL. and that's related to all endpoints. That's at the moment localhost 8000, but whenever we deploy the application, we can change this on a production domain with SSL. It's going to be HTTPS, and then we can provide the correct token, and we will be able to make requests. Okay, enough talking. I'm going to paste this token right here. That's going to be localhost 8000. I'm going to save that, go in the albums, and make request. Okay, just like that, we get the data. Now let's create an album. I'm going to call the album cars. Okay, hit on send. And right here we created and we get response. We get status code 201 created, we get the data. Now if I try to make request and get all albums, I'm going to see one record right there. I don't see more than one because I don't have yet. If I scroll down at the very bottom, I see total is 1. That's the pagination information, 2 per page, and basically everything is changed right here, from and to and so on. Okay, let's create a few more albums. I'm going to call these cats, make request using Control and Enter, dogs, Control and Enter, and let's create one more Linux, Control and Enter. I created 4 albums. I'm going to go in Get Albums and make request. And right here I see cars and cats and dogs and Linux. Okay, I see all 4. I can get a single album by specifying the album ID. Let's make request. I should get cats because that was the second one I created with the ID 2. I can of course update the album. I need to provide right here the ID, and in the body I'm going to provide the actual JSON object. In the delete, I can of course provide the ID and make request, and the first one will be deleted. Let's see get images. Right now get images won't return anything because we haven't resized any image. I'm going to go in the resize section. We have possibility to resize in many variations, like in many different ways. We have possibility to pass the image as a URL, or we have possibility to pass the image as a file, normally upload that file. We also have possibility to specify the width and height in which we need to resize as a percentage or as a pixel. So we can just remove the percentage at the end, and that means basically pixel. All right, let's make a request. So I'm passing that image. I also specify in which album I want that image to be saved. However, this album ID is optional. I can remove that and don't pass it. I'm going to make request, and I get resized response. So I have everything about the image, the name, what type operation is that, what image manipulation is that, that's resized. I get the original image which I passed, and also the output. Let's see the original one. So that's the spaceship, and let's see now resized one, and that's how it looks like. Okay, it's just 100 pixel width. And I see the album ID as well. So now if I make request to get images, I'm going to see one image right there. Okay, I can also get images by album. In this case, I have to specify 2 right here, make request, and I see that. If I specify album ID 1 and make request, I'm going to get empty data array. All right, that's it for the demo. If you're excited, hit the like button and get ready for the next section. If you want to grab the source code, that's the repository link on my GitHub. You can find the link in the video description as well, but you can just go on my GitHub profile page, github.com, the Codeholic, go in the repositories, and right here you can find that Laravel image manipulation REST API. You can clone, you can experiment. I have also README with demo link as well as installation instructions. If you feel comfortable in Laravel and you want to make some changes in the project, feel free to make a pull request. And if you enjoy the project, just give it a star. In the video description, I provided timecodes. Check the timecodes and feel free to skip any section if you are not interested in that part of the video. All right. Let's have a look at the brief overview of the project steps we're going to follow. First of all, we're going to install fresh new Laravel project. And then we're going to implement database models. After this, we're going to implement album CRUD. Next, I'm going to explain what is Laravel resources, what advantages they have, and we're going to implement versioning in our REST API. After this, we're going to move on images and implement image resize and other image-related endpoints like to get images by album, and so on. After this, we're going to implement login and registration on the website. Then we're going to implement management of personal access tokens using Sanctum and implement authentication in our REST API. And finally, we're going to host the application on production. As a choice of hosting provider, we're going to use Hostinger, which is also a sponsor of this video. Hostinger is a world-class website hosting platform with over 29 million of users across the world. Hostinger offers services like hosting, domains, SSL certificates, website design services, and much more. If we just talk about hosting services, they offer shared hosting, VPS hosting, and email hosting as well. I personally used Hostinger services many months ago before the sponsorship, and honestly, I was very pleased using Hostinger services. It is one of the cheapest hosting platforms out there. Their servers are extremely fast and they guarantee 99.99% uptime. It's very easy to set up for both shared hosting and VPS. Their shared hosting is very optimized for WordPress websites. You can basically set up your website in less than 5 minutes. They have very modern and user-friendly control panel. They provide free domain and SSL if you go with premium shared hosting plan, and even after that, if you are not happy with their services, they offer 30 days money-back guarantee. Their main website is hostinger.com. However, if we go on the 000webhost.com website, which is powered by Hostinger, we're going to see right here several hosting packages. I'm going to click on Get Started Now, and right here you can see, yes, that's 0. So it has also free web hosting. However, that's just for one website. It has some limitations, no email account, and no support, and it doesn't offer you also a domain. Yes, you can choose free web hosting with Hostinger as well. However, we're going to go with the premium shared hosting, which offers a lot of great features. Actually, let's go to their main website. If you decide to go with the Hostinger and choose one of the paid plans, please use the coupon code TheCodeHolic, or just click the link which will be in the video description. That's affiliate link, you're going to get 10% discount, and that will be beneficial for me as well. Right now they have Black Friday discount 80%. Okay, I'm going to go for it. Just click on that. Okay, right here we have web hosting plan. We have right here even WordPress hosting. Okay, you can, if you are interested in WordPress, you can have a look at those plans. I'm going to go with the web hosting, and we have 3 options here: single shared hosting, premium shared hosting, and business shared hosting. Which one should we choose? Let's have a look what they offer. In the single one, they offer one website, 30 GB of storage. We don't have free domain, and that Google AdWords credit as well. We don't have that on the right side. So basically that one is obviously the best one. However, I don't see that big difference between the premium shared hosting and business shared hosting. So I'm going to go with this one. And that costs $2 per month, which actually includes free domain and SSL. So if you consider how much a domain can cost, it's just can cost $10 or much more. And shared hosting, basically, which I found for other platforms, costs around $4 at least per month. In this $2, they offer hosting as well as the domain, and free email. Email costs also some money, and SSL. Okay, I'm gonna click on select. Okay, right here we have 3 options. Sometimes Hostinger selects the 48 month when you open this page very first time. So pay attention to that. If you want to use 48 month right now, just go for it. You just pay $2 per month for next 4 years, and that's going to be it. So total, you're going to pay this amount. No, actually, you're going to pay this amount of money for 4 years, which is actually amazing. So I'm going to go with the 12-month period, and I'm going to pay this 23. If you're going to provide the coupon code, the CodeHolic, you're going to get additional discount on that. Scroll down right here. If you're new to Hostinger, you probably need to register. Okay, right here you're going to see email registration. Right now I'm already authenticated, that's why I don't see that. You're going to see email, you provide the email and register, you provide the information, your credit card information. Right here, you can type the coupon code, the CodeHolic, and that's going to apply additional discount as I mentioned. You fill up the credit card information and then submit your secure payment. After that, you have to provide your password. And right here, I can already set up my domain and SSL and everything. I'm going to skip that section if I'm creating the website for. Okay, then select the platform. I can choose the WordPress if I want, or WooCommerce, or some other. I can skip that as well if I already have a website. Okay, I'm going to skip that as well. I'm going to start from scratch. And right here, I can buy a domain, use an existing domain, or I'm going to claim a free domain. I'm going to click right here. And now I want to enter my desired domain. Okay, I'm going to call this myimagesprocessing.com. I click check if this is available. Okay, the domain is available. Basically, I already have the website deployed on the lobbyimages.com, but I'm going to use the actual domain to show you how you can deploy on an actual domain. So I'm going to actually purchase that domain, pay for it, and purchase, and not the domain, but the premium shared hosting, which includes free domain inside. So right here, it has also a possibility to select your location. Hostinger supports several locations across the world: America, USA, Europe, Asia. Okay, continue. Okay, after this, we have to provide some contact details information. We fill up that, and that's it. So after this, we can already view our website. My account has been created. But right now, I don't have an actual domain. It's on previewdomain.com. It's a subdomain at the moment because it needs several minutes, or not minutes, maybe several seconds to finalize this process. I'm going to go in the control panel. And right here, we have a lot of options and possibilities. Right here, we see orders, accounts, emails, domains. We see some website-related things, like website, WordPress, and so on. We see a file manager, database, some advanced things. We see right here SSH access, which we're going to use later when we deploy the application. We're going to do this using SSH. And we have other section right here as well. So the interface is very, very user-friendly. Now I'm going to go on the SSL section, and right here we see SSL certificate activation. I'm going to click on setup right here. The domain is pre-populated for me. I'm going to click on install. It's going to take seconds until this is actually installed. So I'm going to copy the domain and open in a new tab. Okay, it's not yet working. Let's wait a couple of seconds. I'm going to refresh the page. And here it is. Your account has been created. myimagesprocessing.com. We have SSL also activated, and basically we are ready to deploy our Laravel application. Okay, now I'm going to go in the H panel and I'm going to go in the file manager, and I'm going to basically modify this landing page of my website. So I'm going to go in the public HTML. Basically, if we go in the domain section right here, we see myimagesprocessing.com. And we purchased premium shared hosting plan, which gives us possibility to host up to 100 websites. So I'm going to go in the public HTML and I'm going to edit that default. Okay, I'm going to change the default and I'm going to call this hello. I'm going to save that and close, and I'm going to refresh the page, and right here I see hello. Okay, that's basically how you can modify the default page, but we're not going to, of course, do anything like this. We're going to deploy our Laravel application in this shared hosting, and we're going to do this using SSH. And that basically will replace that default PHP and everything inside the folder, my images processing.com folder. So I really love this SSH client. That's why I love the premium shared hosting. They offer this SSH CLI, because in my SSH client I have already Composer installed, Git installed, all the PHP packages like PHP GD, which is necessary for image resizing and image manipulation. I already have that installed in the Hostinger, so that's actually what we want. All right, I think it's time to focus building our application, and finally we're going to deploy that using the SSH terminal. Before we start, let's see the tools and prerequisites we need to have. We will need Composer, which is a dependency manager for PHP. If you don't know what's a composer, you need to find out more about that before you continue this course. We need to have database, MySQL and PHP. So I'm on Windows at the moment, and I have XAMPP installation, which includes PHP, MySQL, and Apache. And if you are on same installation, same setup, you can stick with that. You can have that. If you're on a Linux, you need to have PHP and MySQL installed. And however, if you are on Windows and you don't have that, you can either download XAMPP for the latest PHP version for your operating system, or you can follow the tutorial with SQLite example. I'm going to show also on an SQLite example how you can configure your Laravel to use SQLite instead of MySQL. However, you will need PHP to be installed, definitely. Okay, so you need to have Postman. I actually already have that, and it's a REST client, which is one of the best REST client for making requests. So we're building REST API. We need to test that. We need to use some client for that. Postman is one of the best. And I'm using PHP Storm for my as a choice of IDE editor. It's like one of the most intelligent IDE. However, it's not free. It has free 30-day trial. You can try it. If you don't want that one, of course, you can write the code on VS Code, which is absolutely free. It's actually one of the most popular editor in the world right now. I have actually, the VS Code is not that perfect for PHP in my opinion, but I have a couple of videos how you can configure your VS Code to be best possible editor for PHP. I also have 2 hours comparison VS Code versus PHP Storm, and you can check out, I will put the video links in the description. Okay, so that being said, we can, I think, install the Laravel project and start working on that. So let me close these links. So first of all, let's have a look at the repository. So this is the project which is already done and pushed. So you can have a look. There's a demo link. There's an installation instructions. If you find that project fun and useful, just give it a star. If you want to make some changes, feel free to make pull requests. And that's it. Okay, so let's install Laravel. Laravel install. So let's go with the official documentation and go in the installation section. And there are a couple of options to install Laravel. And some of them uses Docker. And I don't want to overcomplicate things at the moment. So I'm going to use just Composer to install a project. I don't want to use Docker at the moment. However, in general, in a big projects in a team, we generally try to stick with the Docker because it's an excellent tool. Okay, so getting started, we want to installation via Composer or Laravel installer. Basically, both are the same. We either need to run the following command, Composer create project Laravel, or we need to install Laravel installer and then Laravel new example app. So if you have not this command run, you can run it. I already did that, so I'm going to run Laravel new. But first of all, let's go to the project where I'm going to install, open git bash, open any terminal basically, and run Laravel new, and let's call the project image manipulation Laravel API. Okay, hit enter. It's going to take a couple of minutes because it's going to download the project, run composer install, run a couple of things for me. So I'm going to pause the recording and get back when this is done. Okay, the project is installed and I'm going to open that using my PHP Storm. Right click, open the folder as PHP Storm project. It's going to take a couple of seconds to open the project. Here it is. Okay, because we're going to use MySQL, we need to have XAMPP control panel. We need to open XAMPP control panel. I'm going to open that. And we need to actually start Apache and MySQL both. So I'm starting Apache because I want to access phpMyAdmin, okay, to create the database. However, then I'm going to use PHP Storm's built-in database tool. However, you can stick with the phpMyAdmin if you are not using PHP Storm. Okay, so let's open localhost /phpMyAdmin. I'm going to click on new and call image manipulation API. Click on create. I created the database, so I'm going to actually, let's leave this. I'm not going to close yet. So open PHP Storm, and we can actually already start the project, but so far the project is not using database. So PHP artisan serve. So the project has been started. Click on that. We see the project landing page. Okay. However, as I mentioned, the project is not using database. That's why we don't have any issues. However, we need to configure the database to be able to run migrations. Okay. Open the env. And right here we have the connection MySQL. I can actually change this into SQLite and then comment everything else right here. However, I need to create the database right here. So database.SQLite. Okay, the database has been created, and now I can run PHP artisan serve. Oops, not serve, but migrate. Okay, the migrations has been applied. Okay, however, if I don't have a database and run the migrations, I'm going to see an error. There's no database error. Okay, let's go back to MySQL. So if you don't want to install MySQL or something like this, you can stick with the SQLite. It's totally fine. Okay, so let's change this into MySQL. Let's configure image manipulation. Let's configure the database name, image manipulation API. The username is root. The password is empty. And I'm going to run PHP artisan migrate. It's going to run and create tables for me. Now open phpMyAdmin, and right here in the image manipulation API, we see those tables. So if you're interested to see data inside the tables, you click on the table, you see everything right here. So I guess this is not the first time you are in phpMyAdmin, so I think you are familiar with that. So I'm going to close phpMyAdmin because later I'm going to use my PHP Storm's built-in database tool. So I'm going to assign a database right here. The user is root. Test connection. That's good. Go in the schemas. I'm going to enable image manipulation API. Okay, here are my tables. Perfect. So I have installed the project. I have configured the database. I'm going to close everything else. And I think I don't need anything right here. So let's first have a look at the database schema according which we need to create models. Okay, so here we have two tables, album and image manipulation. Okay, album has only name as a required field, and it has timestamps and user ID. And the image manipulation has name, path, which is intended to be a local path for the original image user provided. The type, which is intended to be a resize or conversion or optimization. Right now, we're going to only support resize. The data should be the all request incoming data the user provided. That's good for save. Output path will be local path for processed image. So if we're going to resize, that's going to be the resized image path. Create that when this happened, when the user made a request to resize an image, user ID and album ID. Okay, album ID actually is optional. All right, so we have the schema, and now I think we can start generating models. Okay, so for this, I'm going to open terminal and I'm going to run php artisan make model, and I'm going to call the model album. And I'm going to generate migration as well, so I'm going to provide -m flag. So that's going to create model and migration. So models are under app models, and the migrations will be under database migrations. So I don't need to do anything to the model yet. And I'm going to open the create albums table, and let's configure that. Okay, so we have ID, and we have to provide a string to be name 255. We have to provide, we do have timestamps. Let's have a look in the schema again. Name, we have timestamps and user ID. So we have to provide right here, actually let's do this below timestamps. So table foreign ID for user model class, and that should be user ID. The column name is called user ID. So by the user ID for the albums table, it's gonna connect to the user table. Okay, so we can run php artisan migrate, which will run this and create table, albums table right here. You see that? Perfect. So let's generate image manipulation model as well. php artisan make model image manipulation -m. Let's open the migration. Okay, and we have more fields right here. So we have string to be name 255. Let's duplicate these few times. We have, what do we have? Path, type, data. So we have path, we have type, we have data, we have output path created at user ID. Okay, output path created at and user ID. Let's actually give the correct type. So path should be with a length of 2000, type with a length of 25. The data is basically text, so we don't need length on that. Output path again 2000. So the created at is actually a timestamp. So if we specify timestamps, that's going to create both columns, created at and updated at. However, we don't want both, so we can just delete that timestamps and just provide right here timestamp created at without additional arguments. And what else do we have? We have user ID and album ID. So for that, we have to specify foreign ID for user with the user ID field. And let's duplicate this one, foreign ID for album with the album ID. Okay, I think we did everything correctly. Save, I'm going to open terminal and run PHP artisan migrate, which will create image manipulations table right here. Okay, that's perfect. I think now we can start working on the album CRUD. So for that, we need to generate a controller. PHP artisan make controller. Let's call this album controller. I'm going to provide a flag -- requests. Again, I always say this to my students and to anyone who wants to learn something. So when you are working on a project, always have your documentation opened. So even the developers who have tens and 20, like decades of years experience, they work with the documentation. So no one has remembered everything by heart. So they just know things and they search for. So if you're interested to see to know more about controllers, you can go in the controllers section and you can search for make : controller, and you see everything related to that. Okay, so what flags you can provide, like we're going to provide requests, and we're going to provide as well API flag, and everything is described right here. Okay, so create album controller request -- API. Hit enter on that. What just happened? Controller created successfully. However, I want to specify model as well. I think we need to specify right here -- model equals album request and API. Let's delete the controller because it has already been created and recreate that. Okay, now requests created successfully. Fine, we have that album controller, and inside the request we have that two classes. So what are requests? Let's first have a look in the album controller. So right here we have a couple of methods: index, store, show, update, and destroy. Again, if we have a look in the documentation, we see that when we generate a resource controller, it basically supports the following endpoints. However, because we create for the API, we don't want photos create, which is basically for rendering a form. So the purpose of get photos create is to render a form. The same thing for the get photos edit. So that's the purpose, to render the form. We don't want that. So that's why we need to, we don't have that because we provided the API flag right here. Okay. So now let's talk about the requests. So it generated, right here, it generated two requests: store album request and update album request. What are those? So those are classes which provide, which purpose is to have the validations. Okay, so right here we're gonna put some validation rules, and if the validation rules are not satisfied, the request will not come here. It will be immediately rejected and returned to the user. Okay, however, if the validation is successfully passed, then the request comes right here. Okay, so let's actually implement first of all, let's implement rules for the store album request, and I'm going to specify name as a required rule. And that's basically all. We don't want anything else for the store album. So, however, right here, we need to create album. So I'm going to call album create, and I'm going to pass request all. Okay, and this one gives us created album, and we can return that album. Let's save this, semicolon, and let's have a look. Okay, let's open now the Postman, and I'm going to delete everything. So right here, I'm going to close everything, and we need to create album. Okay, so make request, and we get unauthorized. That's probably because when we added the collection, we have right here the production domain. Okay, so I'm going to change this into localhost 8000. So if you want to follow with me and create requests with me, first of all, you have to create a Postman collection. So click on New Collection and then give it a name. Okay, then you create requests, add requests inside the collection. You choose the method and headers and so on. So right here, when we create an album request, in the params, we don't have anything. In the authorization, we have the default value, which is inherit from parent. In the headers, I specified accept application JSON and content type application JSON. And that's the two headers are basically added to every request. Okay. That basically tells the engine that my data exchange type is the JSON. In the body, I specify as a row the JSON. Okay, I provided that. Okay, let's go right here in the collection, edit, and right here in the variables, you need to add two variables, base URL and token. The base URL is used in the URL right here. The token is used inside the collection, inside the token. So when we implement authentication, then the token is more relevant. But right now, you can just don't pay attention to that, okay? So we can even disable it. So we have the current URL to be localhost 8000. Save that, and now make request, which will use localhost 8000. Perfect, make request. And we see something, we see not found. Why do we get that? Because we have not configured API routes. I'm going to open now routes API PHP, and we need to configure endpoints right here. Okay, so route get, whenever get request is made on album, actually I'm going to configure using resource. So route API resource for album, I'm going to provide the controller album controller class. Okay, that API resource basically gives me all the 5 endpoints like get, get all, get one, update, delete, and create. Okay, I have all those by specifying that API resource. I save that and make request again. I still get not found. That's because our URL contains right now version number in it. And we haven't implemented versioning yet. So if I just delete that version 1 and make request just like that, now that one actually works. It doesn't return 404, but it returns forbidden. That happens because in the store album request, that authorized returns false. If I change that into true and save and make request, we see that the name, add name to fillable property to allow mass assignments. A lot of errors, right? So that generally happens when you are a beginner and start doing all these things and follow the things step by step. So when you grow, you know things beforehand and you fix things beforehand before the error actually happens. So let's go in the album and write inside protected fillable name. And later we're going to use also album ID. So I'm going to put this right here, okay? Although, sorry, it should be user ID. Although I am not specifying it yet, it won't hurt the code. So let's make final request. And now we see another error, user ID doesn't have a default value. Okay, that's my bad. So when I generated the migrations, I made the user ID as a required field. Okay, let's go in the database migrations right here. And I'm going to make the database, the user to be nullable. And we have a couple of things nullable right here. So let's specify the output path to be nullable and create it to be nullable as well. So let's have a look in the schema. We have output path nullable, create that nullable, user ID, album ID, specify album ID to be nullable as well. But we made those for image manipulations. We need to do the same thing for album as well. So let's make user ID to be nullable. So now I save that, but that doesn't affect the database, right? So I first need to roll back my migrations. PHP artisan migrate rollback, and that's going to roll back the image manipulation table. We don't have that in the database anymore. We can have a look. We don't have that. And rollback once again, which will delete the albums table as well. Okay. However, now we can run PHP artisan migrate, which will recreate those tables, but now with non-required fields. Now, if I run this request again, I hope finally it's going to work. And that's how it is. So we have that album created. We can have a look in the database as well. So click on albums. Right here we see user ID is null because we don't have authentication yet. Okay, fine. So we can actually create more albums like cats. You can make requests in Postman using Control and Enter. So dogs, Control Enter. I don't know, cars. Okay, fine. Now let's try to get albums. Okay, so right here we need to remove v1, make request, and we haven't actually implemented get albums. So let's go in the album controller. I'm going to close the migration files. In the album controller at the top, I'm going to return album all. Let's just return all at the moment. Make request, and we get all albums. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. So let's try to get a single album. We have to remove v1 and make request. That's not also implemented, so let's actually implement everything. So inside the store, we actually return immediately album because that's fetched by Laravel for us already. So for update, we have album, and we're going to call update. We're going to provide request all. That's going to update and return album. However, we need to adjust the update rules. In the authorize, we need to set true. For rules, we need to specify name to be required. Okay, we implemented update, and let's try destroy. So for album, we're going to call delete, which will delete that from the database. And I'm going to return from here. By default, Laravel will return status 200, but I'm going to return custom response with an empty content and status 204. Okay. Now, let's make requests for those. So get single album, which is now already implemented. We get Linux. Update album, remove v1, and let's call Linux updated. Make request. Here we got that, and delete. Let's delete the first album, remove v1. Okay, and we get 204, which means that they successfully deleted. If we have a look in the database, in the albums table, we see 3, but the first one is actually deleted. Okay, fine. What is now this v1? That's the API version. And every complex and not complex, but every production-ready API needs to have versioning. And why the versioning is necessary and important. So let's say that when we get albums right now, the fields are called created at and updated at. But later you decided to change those fields with create date and update date. Okay, so if you just make these changes directly, you're going to break someone else's code who might be using your API with these endpoints. So because that code expects created at, but you actually returned create date. So if you make such kind of changes, it's good practice that you change the version from 1 into 2. Okay, and then in version 2, it's going to return create date. So although we are not going to implement version 2 in this tutorial, we are going to implement versioning so that if you need, you can implement version 2 in your APIs. Okay, how we are going to do that? So we're going to, first of all, put our route API in the v1 prefix. So I'm going to call route prefix v1, and then I'm going to call group on that with closure function there, and I'm going to put my API resource inside. Okay, so using that approach, every endpoint, every route which I declare inside the closure will be inside that prefix. Okay, fine. Now, if I make request to v1 album, that's going to work. Okay, however, it's not going to work if I make request without v1. Okay, here we get not found. That's why we need v1 here. Make request, we get cats. Nice. The same for update. v1. Okay, we update the 2. Now cats are updated, and it's called now Linux updated actually. Okay, and we have v1 for delete. All right, so we have implemented in the route, but that's not enough. So if we decided to make some changes, we have to have different controller and resources as well. So what are resources? So I'm going to open documentation and explain what are resources as well. So resources, API resources. So resources are basically a representation layer which sits in between the models and the response which is sent to the user. And the purpose of resources is to transform the model data to the representable way which should be returned to the user. Okay, so that's basically my explanation. You can read here how it's explained. You can have a look all the documentation, how you can generate resources and everything. And again, I encourage you to stick with the documentation and just read that. So let's open our terminal, and I'm going to generate now album resource. PHP artisan make resource, and I'm going to call the resource album resource. Okay, and I'm going to generate that resource inside the v1 namespace. Okay, I'm going to specify uppercase v1 double backslashes and album resource. Hit enter on that, and the resource created successfully. That resource folder is created inside the HTTP folder, app HTTP. Okay, and right here we see that album resource. If you generate without v1 double backslash, it's going to just put that album resource in the resources folder immediately. However, in the future, we might need version 2 resource, which differently represents and converts the model data to the user. So we definitely need that inside the version. And we need to do the same thing for the album controller. So I'm going to do this manually. I'm going to create v1. Actually, when you generate a controller, you can generate with the namespace as well, just like we did for the album resource. So we could write here v1 double backslash album controller. Okay. But right now, I'm going to put that manually, v1, and just put this right here. And I need to update a few things. First, I need to update the namespace, v1. And then, because that controller now is in a different folder, I have to include that controller. If you're using VS Code, like you can write the import manually, but I think there are some extensions which does support you importing the other classes. Again, I have a video regarding 12 VS Code extensions for PHP development, and check out my channel or video description for that one. But right now for PHP Storm, I'm going to hit Alt and Enter and import app HTTP controllers, and that's the one we want to import. I think in VS Code there's also on Alt and Enter. So I imported that controller. Now I have my controllers and resources inside the version, which is cool and exactly what we want. And when we make requests to get album, that doesn't work because we missed to update inside the route. So right here, we need to specify v1 album controller. However, I'm going to replace this with the use. So Alt and Enter in PHP Storm, replace qualifier with import, and that was moved right here. Save, make request in Postman, and we get. So now we have successfully implemented CRUD for album, and we have versioning as well and resources. Now we need to go in the image manipulation. Okay, now let's generate image manipulation controller and resource. So let's generate first controller. Okay, model will be image manipulation for the controller. That's going to be under v1 / image manipulation controller. We generate requests and API, hit enter on that, requests and the controller created successfully, and we need to generate now resource, and I'm going to call that image manipulation resource. Hit enter on that, and resource created successfully. Let's have a look. Under controllers, under v1, we have that image manipulation controller. Under requests, we have store image manipulation request and update image manipulation request. However, we don't have update image manipulation support, so I'm going to just delete that request. We have store image manipulation. We're going to rename this into Resize. And in the resources, we have image manipulation resource as well. Okay. Perfect. Just one thing which I forgot, I think. So I created a resource, but let's see how we can actually use that resource. Okay, so let's go in the album controller and let's actually, first of all, see what is returned when we get albums. So we get the following data. However, for example, user ID should not be returned, because right now it's always null, but later when we implement the user authentication, it's going to be the authenticated user. So it doesn't make sense to return user ID, right? So that's the one of the reasons why you need resources. So I'm going to go in the album resource, and right here I'm going to change that to array method, okay? So right here I'm going to write the fields which I want to return. I'm going to use this keyword which corresponds to the model. Okay, so this corresponds to model. Let me actually first show you how you can use that. So in the index, I'm going to use album resource collection. So I'm specifying the collection right here, and I'm telling the album resource that, hey, take that collection, and for each of the items inside the collection, call toArray method. Okay, and this will become the album model. So let's duplicate these few times. We need ID, name, we need created it, and we need updated it as well. Updated it. Perfect. Now I'm going to use that resource. Let's actually see the result. So now it's put the array inside the data. That's actually very good. and we don't have user ID anymore presented. Okay. However, let's actually implement the pagination as well. So right here, instead of all, I'm going to specify paginate. Okay, save and make request. And now we see data, but not only data, we see links and meta. And that meta contains the information, and links as well, contains the information about the pagination. Okay, per page, we show 15. There are totally 3. That's why we don't have any other pages, current page. So everything basically about the pagination. So if we create more albums, we're going to see this information, how this information is changing, basically. If you want to increase the number of records per page, you can pass it right here, make request, and now the per page is basically 20. So that's good. We see how the data is returned because of the resource. Okay, resource puts the data inside that data. Okay, now let's use that resource for other things. So for a single item, we have to create an instance of album resource and pass the model. Let's do the same thing for here. New album resource. And for delete, we don't do anything. Okay, so now if I just create an album, something is wrong. Okay, V1, make request. Okay, here I see the cars created album without the user ID inside the data. It proves that the resources are working perfectly. All right, now we're about to move in the image manipulation. Okay, let's go in the image manipulation resource first. No, actually, let's focus on the other things first. Let's go in the controller and let's have a look at the methods what we have here. So we have index, store, show, update, and destroy. We don't need update, so we can just delete that. We need index to get all the images. We need store, which basically I'm going to call Resize. At the moment we have Resize. I'm going to open that image manipulation, store image manipulation request, and I'm going to call this Resize image request. Resize image request. That's the actual name. Now my PHP Storm asks me if I want to rename in the places where it is used. I'm going to click OK, and I don't have to worry about the other things. So it's going to find where it was used and rename for me. That's fine. In the show, I just get single image and destroy. That's fine. Let's actually configure roles. Okay, so I go in the API and under prefix v1 right here, I'm going to write route get image. When the get request is made on image, we have to use image manipulation controllers index. Okay, I am going to replace this with use, and let's write other endpoints. So when get request is made on single image, then we're gonna call show method. When post request is made on image / resize, then we're going to call resize method. Okay, I'm going to add one more method, get by album. And right here, we need to specify album as well. Okay, and that will be by album method. And I think we need to implement delete. So delete on image, and that's going to call destroy. So I think we have all the methods except by album. So I'm just going to go and add that. And right here, we will get album instance. Okay. For delete, I think we need to get right here image as well. All right, perfect. So I think it's time to start working on the image resize. The endpoints basically are going to work. However, they are not going to do anything, like get images, for example. Make request, 200, do nothing. Get a single image, make request, 200, nothing. Get images by album, make request. In this case, it returns 404 because it tries to find the album, which doesn't exist. Let's specify album 3. And it's going to return 200. So everything basically works. I mean, the endpoints work. However, we have to implement all these things. Let's go in the image manipulation controller and start working on resize. Okay, so before we start working on the resize, we need to set the inside resize image request, we need to set the rules, validation rules. First of all, let's change this into true. And inside the rules, okay, let's see how we're going to implement the resize. So let's have a look in the Postman. Okay, so right here, when we make request, we pass image, and that image can either be URL or it can be an uploaded file. We also specify album ID, which is optional. You can skip it if you want. We also pass width and height, and that width and height can be either numbers or percentage values, and the height is even optional. Okay, so if we specify only width, then the height is calculated proportionally. All right, so we have to do all these things. So let's start with the image first, which we need to specify that this is required. Okay. So what about width? The width is also required, but it can be either, let me actually show. So the width can either be 50 or 50%, or it can be 50 point something like 123, or 50.123%. So that are the possible values that the width can be. Okay, I'm going to use regex rule. Okay, and let's actually open the documentation again and go in the validation. Okay, and down below we have the available validation rules, and you can have a look at the regex somewhere right here. Where it is? Regex. Here it is. So it does support regex for sure. Why it's not presented right here, I don't know, but it does support regex for sure. So if you don't know what is regex, it's a pattern for matching strings inside string. Okay, so right here I'm going to specify regex notation, and I'm going to specify that the given value width should start with digits, then it might contain dot and a couple of more digits, or it might not contain. So that basically means that optionally there will be this or not. Okay, and after that there might be percent also or not, and this is the end of the string. So this regex will match numbers, this one basically all for variations. Okay, if you want to just know more about regex from me, just leave a comment down below, and I can create like maybe 1 hour course around regex, which is, I feel pretty comfortable in regex, and I think regex is kind of tool you don't appreciate until you know how good it is. So, and like that's how it is. So as soon as you find out how magically you can solve the problems, then you love it. You think that, whoa, why I didn't learn that before. Okay, that's for the width, and we need to do something similar for height as well. However, the height is not required, so I'm just going to take the regex string and put this right here. Okay, and we can specify album ID as well. Okay, so album ID needs to be a valid ID inside the albums table. Okay, so for this, I'm going to use exists rule, and I'm going to use the model name \up http models. It's not up http, it's just up models \album, ID. So that basically you can check the exists rule in the documentation as well. Right here, it's gonna check, it has possibility to check inside the database table or inside the model. So right here we have the model example. So we're gonna check if that user ID, this example checks if the user ID is exists inside the user model ID. However, we're gonna do something similar for album. All right, so we defined basic rules. However, that's not enough. So image can either be URL or it can be uploaded file. So we need a rule to basically check that if this is a valid URL, if it's not an uploaded file. So if the user just passes 1, 2, 3 right here, we shouldn't show an error, that validation error, that hey, this is not valid URL. Okay. Only giving required on the image is not enough. That's my point. So let's actually change this into a variable, and we have to dynamically add some rules inside that rules array. So first of all, let me actually get all the values we have. So we get let me actually get only image. So we need image. We need to get from this post, we actually get image. Okay. Then I check if image exists and if the image is instance of uploaded file, and that is illuminate HTTP uploaded file. If that's so, then inside the rules for image, I'm going to add one more rule, which is called image. Okay, you can find that rule right here as well on the validation section. Okay, however, if it's not uploaded file, I assume that it is URL, and then inside the rules, I'm going to add that it's a valid URL. Okay, and that's it. So we're going to return rules. So we need to test if our rules working fine. So I'm just going to dump the rules and exit right here. So go in the Postman and make request. And here we see rules. For image, it's required and it is URL. Fine. If we go in the second version for uploaded files, make request, we see that the image is required and it is URL. Okay, that proves that it's not working. So let's see what's this image. Exit right here, make request. The image is actually null. All right, let's actually get the image from all image. If that doesn't exist, we can set to false. Okay, now make request. And now we see that the image is uploaded file. Okay, for some reason it didn't get from the post. All right, we have that image, and finally let's check the rules. So it's required and it is image. That's perfect. So remove that. And I think we did every validation right here. now we can go in the image manipulation controller and start working on the actual resize. Okay. So first of all, I need to get the whole data from request. And I'm going to save it in a variable called all. I'm going to take image as a separate variable from all image. And let me add an annotation right here that this will be either uploaded file or it will be string. Okay, if it's a URL, it's going to be string. And I'm going to remove that image from all variable because later I'm going to take that all and save it in the image manipulation table inside the data column. And I don't want the image to be there, okay, because we're going to save image somewhere else. Okay, that's good. Now let's start preparing the data which we're going to save in the database. So I create data variable, and right here we need to specify the type. We need to specify name. So everything basically what we need right here. However, we don't have name so far. We have type, which we know is the Resize. So I'm going to actually create now constant inside image manipulation model right here. I'm going to create constant type Resize, which corresponds to Resize string. Okay. While I'm here, let me do other things. So inside the image manipulation, we don't have updated add column. So we're going to get error if we don't tell the image manipulation model that you don't have updated that column. Okay, so I'm going to set the constant updated add on false. Okay, fine. And we need to provide fields inside the fieldable as well. Inside fieldable, we will need name, path, type, data, output path, user ID, and album ID. Okay, we provided that. Now go in the controller, and I'm going to use image manipulation model type Resize. Okay, then we have to specify the whole data. And the data will be all, but I'm going to call JSON encode on that to save that all as JSON. And we have user ID. We don't have implementation of the user authentication yet, so I'm going to leave these to null. We also have album ID, but that's kind of optional. Okay, if album ID is presented, we need to also check if that ID actually belongs to the user later who is authorized. Okay, so let me check if inside all there is album ID, and I'm going to use isSet. If album ID exists there, then I'm going to actually write to do here. So I need to actually select the album and make the validation in the future. But right now inside the data for album ID, I'm going to specify all album ID. Okay, I will get back to this to do as soon as I implement the authentication for the user. Okay, what do we do after this? So we prepare most of the things regarding data. Now I think we need to start working on the actual image saving and resizing. Okay, so I need to write an if statement if image is instance of uploaded file. Okay, then we do a couple of things right here. Let's write else as well. So first of all, we get inside the data, we put the name of the image to be image get client original name. Okay, that's the actual name. I also want to take the file name and extension for the image. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you. So let's say that our image is uploaded, the image which is uploaded is called test.jpg. Okay, so I'm going to convert that into test-resized.jpg. Okay, well, how I'm going to do that? So first of all, I need to take the file name without the extension. I'm going to take extension separately, and then I'm going to concatenate that with the resized inside it. Okay, so for this reason, I'm going to take file name, which will be, I'm going to use path info right here. I'm going to take from the data name, let's take the path info file name. I want to take extension as well, which will be to get client original extension from the image. We have that, fine. All right, let's think about how we're going to save an image. So I'm going to save image inside public folder under images. Okay, so I'm going to create images right here. Inside that images, I'm going to create git ignore. And inside git ignore, I'm going to write ignore everything except git ignore. All right. And right here inside the images folder, I am going to create a random folder. So my path for the image will look like this. Images inside the public. Images / some random thing, and then the uploaded image like test.jpg. Okay, that's how I see that. That's how I'm going to save also in the database. And whenever I resize, then I'm going to have in the same folder, I'm going to have test-resize.jpg. Okay, this is how I want to do. So I'm going to create that folder first of all, and I can do this right here. So let me create a directory variable, and that's going to be this one basically. So images / then I'm going to use str eliminate support str, and I'm going to generate random string and / at the end. So that's my directory. I'm going to take also absolute path. That's the relative path. I need absolute path as well. It's going to be public path passing the dir. Okay, and I need to check if the directory doesn't exist. I need to create, but I know that it won't exist for sure because that creates a random, right? So I'm going to create file. I'm going to use file, and that will be eliminate supports facades, make a directory, and I'm going to pass absolute path right here. Okay, I create that directory, and down below, I'm going to take my image and move inside that absolute path, which I just created. Okay, and I'm going to give it also the name, the whatever it was named. Okay, that's how I need to do that. And I need to save that path in the database as well. So inside data path, I'm going to save dir dir concatenated with the data name, right? It's how I want that. Okay, so I think that's good. We have this file name and extension, which I will need after the else statement. It's not used at the moment, that's fine. Okay, now let's see how we can treat with the image, which is given as a URL. So first of all, in the same way, I can assign the data name from the URL, but I'm going to use path info right here. From the image, I'm going to use path info base name. We need that with the extension, okay? However, I need file name and extension as well, and I'm going to use path info for both. For image, I'm going to use path info file name and duplicate this, and that's going to be extension path info extension. So we have that, and well, I need to now call copy. So from that image URL, I take the image and I want to save it inside the absolute path. Absolute path plus the data name, concatenated with the data name. Okay, that's how I want to do that. And inside the data path, I want to save dir concatenated with data name. I think that one, dir concatenated with data name, even can be outside of this if else statement. Okay, perfect. So we downloaded, we treated both cases, like when the image was uploaded as well as when the image was passed as the URL. And now I want to check if those are correctly downloaded and saved. So open Postman and make request. Given data was invalid. Selected album ID is invalid. Let's remove the album ID. Make request. Okay, something happened. Let's now open public images, random folder. We see that. And here we see that original image. Fantastic. So let's go the second URL. And let's remove this album ID as well. Make request. And we see that one. Fine. So we have successfully wrote our code and the file is saved. Now we need to actually start the resizing. So we take that original image, original path. I want to save that in a variable. So right here we have this dir and data name. So I want that. So right here I want to save original path. Original path. I'm going to use it later. I'm going to show you where I'm going to use that. And that's going to be absolute path concatenated with data name. Okay, and I need that here as well. Okay, now I'm going to do the resize, but first I need to calculate what width and height should I give to the new image. So I know that I have W from the all, which is required, and I also have H, which is optional. Okay, and if that doesn't exist, I'm going to give it false. And those can be either percent values or numbers. Okay, if only width is given and if it is percentage value, I need to calculate what should be the actual value in pixels, and I need to also calculate what should be the value of height inside pixels. Okay, I'm going to actually create separate method to calculate this. So I'm going to call this get image width and height. I'm going to pass W right here and H. And I'm going to pass this original path I created. Okay, that's the absolute path where we saved right now the image. That's it right here. I can actually pass this original path right here. And I expect this one to return calculated width and height. So I'm going to return an array from here. So I'm going to use list function and get width and height from that. Now let's implement this method. Okay, down below, that method is actually private. However, we can have it protected just in case someone wants to extend my class in the future. Okay, so what do? We need to actually read first what's the actual width and height of the image, so that if the W contains percentage, we know what should be the actual value in pixels. Okay, so if the actual value is 1000 in pixels and the width is 50%, we need the final value should be 500 pixel, right? So we need that actual width and height of the image. We need to read that. So we still need to install a package for resizing, and that's called intervention/image. That's the package, and that package also supports, that is basically one of the best packages, if not the best, for image manipulation in PHP. And that one supports also to read the actual width and height for the image. So I'm going to go in the installation section, and I'm going to run composer require intervention image. Open terminal, composer require intervention image. That's going to need a couple of seconds, not more than seconds. Okay, and then we have a lot of examples right here, but we need to actually call image that's called intervention image facades make. We're going to make image instance from the original path, and I'm going to save it in a variable. And now that image variable has width and height methods. So I'm going to create two variables, original width, which will be image width, and original height, which will be image height. Okay, and we have that, and now I need to check if the received width W has percent inside it, because if it has, I need to have different logic. So if str ends with inside the W, I search for percent. If the W ends with percent, then I need to have something else. Otherwise, I do something else. Okay, so let's populate these places. If this is a percent, it's a string, obviously. So I don't want it to be string. I want it to be number. So I am going to call str replace to search for percent and remove that inside the W. And I'm going to actually cast that on a float value, and let's save it in a variable called ratio for W. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing for H. Ratio H equals, however, H might be not presented, it might be false. So if H exists, I'm going to do this. Otherwise, ratio for H will be the same for ratio for W. Let's change this into H. Okay, perfect. So we have ratio W and ratio H as actual float numbers, corresponding float numbers for percentage. And now I'm going to call, I'm going to actually calculate values in pixels. So I'm going to create two new variables. New width will be original width to be multiplied on a ratio width and then divided on 100. Because the ratio W is percent value, this is how we're going to calculate the new width in pixels. And we do the same thing for height. Oops. Height. Okay, so we have new width and height, and we can actually return that new width and height already. However, we need to handle else case. Okay, what happens in else case? So else means that the W is actually already not percent, but actually number. Okay, I need to take that number and assign it into new width equals W. However, I need to consider the fact that I might receive this as a string from the post request. So I'm going to actually cast this into float. Okay. And I need to calculate now new height. Okay, and this is the calculation logic. I'm going to copy and paste this one. So if the original width needs to be reduced into a new width, and we have both of them, and then the original height needs to be reduced into new height. However, we don't have new height. And the new height will be original height multiplied on new width and divided on original width. Okay, that's the formula. So let's actually do like this. However, here's one important thing. The h variable might be presented as a pixel. Okay, we don't support the scenario when the W contains percentage, but H contains, W is pixel, but H is percentage. So we don't consider that value, that scenario. Okay, so in this case, H, or let's call it new width, equals, if the H is presented, then it's going to be float, custom float H. Otherwise, it's going to be original height multiplied on new width and divided on original width. Okay, so using this approach, we have new height as well. And we need to test if this method works fine. So we have width and height. I'm going to dump both width and height. Save that. And go in the Postman and make requests. Okay, we have width and height to be in actual pixel values. Make request. So we see both of them are pixel values. Let's see the example with percentage, make request. We see that the float and this is float as well. So I think they are just half of the actual size. And that's actually correct. And in this case, we're going to have the width to be 100 and the height will be 75 point something. Okay, I think that works fine. We have successfully wrote that piece of code. And now I need to actually resize that image into calculated width and height. Okay, so let's actually create a variable for resized file name. And that's going to be file name concatenated with resized and that concatenated with extension. Okay, and I need to call resize on an intervention image instance. So if we have a look in the documentation again, when we make an image, that image, so there is resize functionality. So image make and then resize. Okay, I actually already made an image right here in this method. This one is the image. I want to call resize on that. So I'm going to return that image from here as well. And I'm going to get the image here. lowercase. And then on that image, I'm going to call Resize, and I'm going to give it width and height. And finally, I'm going to save it into absolute path concatenated with resized file name. Absolute path is the folder, and we have the resized file name as a file name. Okay. And finally, inside the data output path, I'm going to set directory concatenated with resized file name. And we're going to create now image manipulation. So image manipulation, create, pass the data, which will return image manipulation. And then we're going to return that image manipulation from here. Okay. Perfect. Let's actually open and delete all the folders. And now let's make requests and see how that works. Okay, array key exists. The first argument should be either string or an integer. Okay. Where does that come from? Image manipulation. I think that comes from right here. So inside updated 8, I'm going to set this to be null. Okay, not false. That's thing to consider. Now make request again. And it successfully returned response, which is awesome. So this proves that the record was saved in the database as well, right here. However, let's see if the resize happened successfully. Okay, so right here we have the resized version of the image. That's fine. Let's actually use now a resource for image manipulation. Okay, so the response what we get is fine, but not the best response we would like to receive. So I want the path to be an actual URL, original URL, and the output path to be resized path. So we need to take care of that one as well. Okay, so for this, I'm going to go in the image manipulation resource and change this and set this that we're going to return ID. Duplicate this a few times. We're going to return name and type, and we're going to return key original key, and that's going to be path. Okay, however, I want it to be URL, so I'm going to use URL facade to method and give it path. I want output key URL to this output path. Okay, and we want also to return album ID and created it. Okay, perfect. I'm going to save that, go in the image manipulation controller, and I'm going to create new image manipulation resource instance and pass this image manipulation there. Save, make request once again, and here is our output. Inside the data, we have ID, name, resize, original. Let's click on this, and this is the original image. Close, and open this one as well. This is the resized version. Okay, that works fine. Album ID is null. Let's actually provide album ID. I think that's not correct album ID. Let's specify 3. Okay, here is the album ID. Let's now test the uploading file example as well. Album ID is 3. Make request. We have the data. Album ID is 3. It's actually string, but not that important. Open. Right here we see the original one. We see this one is resized. So because we passed right here 1024 by 1024, it's actually means square. Okay, so it's the image is a little bit squeezed, but that's fine. That's actually how we want it, right? Okay, so go in the controller, and we have to implement now getting images as well. So let's return image manipulation resource collection, and I'm going to select image manipulation. I'm going to call paginate on that. Okay. I'm going to copy this, paste this right here, and in image manipulation we're going to specify where, and we have to specify album ID as well. I'm going to actually create a variable for the where because I will need that one for the user as well. So album ID corresponds to album ID. Fine. So we have it where, let's pass it, scroll down, we have show, and inside the show, inside the rows for the show, we have a placeholder called image, and we need to call this one image as well. Okay, so return new image manipulation resource and pass image. And for destroy, we just we need to call this variable image as well. And we just return, first of all, let's delete image, delete, and then we're going to return response, empty response with status code 204. Okay, save that. And now let's test all these endpoints. Okay, get images, make request. We see those one with pagination links. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 images totally. For some of them, album ID is null. For some of them, it's provided. Perfect. Let's get a single image. 6.1. Do we have that? Okay, let's take one of the images ID, like 3. Okay, let's take third one. Here is our image. Let's get images by album. So let's make request, and here we have all the images inside the album number 3. If we specify something else, we're going to get probably an empty result. Okay, let's close this. So I think we have successfully implemented now everything regarding image manipulation controller. Okay, so we have reading, writing, we haven't tested deleting. Let's delete the third image. 204. Let's have a look in the database. We have totally 3. Let's delete the fourth one as well. Okay, it successfully works, and every piece of data is successfully saved. Okay, let's make one more request to make sure that the album ID is saved in the database. Here we have it. All right, so far, so good. All right, now I think it's time to implement login, registration, generating personal access tokens, and basically set the limitations, set the authorization on the REST API. As for the limitations, I haven't mentioned, in the app providers inside the road service provider, we have that configure rate limiting. That basically rate limiting means number of requests a user or a single IP can make inside your API. Okay, right now it's set to 60, so no one basically can make more than 60 API requests into your API. Rate limiting is an essential thing for your APIs, especially if you make that public. So you need to make sure that you set some rate limiting there. Okay, if we just change that rate limiting and test, we see too many attempts error. Let's go in the get albums, for example, make request 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we get that too many attempts with this status code. Okay, so you can of course increase that, and you won't get that too many attempts now. So that's per user. If the user is authorized, if the user is guest, it's for the IP. You have other options like per day, per hour. You can configure that if you want. So you can even chain that rate limiting. So you can find all this information in the API documentation for rate limiting. Okay, so to just have a look at this. All right, now let's start working on the login and registration. So for this, I'm going to actually install a Breeze package. So let's have a look in the starter kits section. So inside the starter kit section, you will find several useful packages like Breeze and Inertia and Jetstream related to Laravel, and some of them is for authentication, especially Breeze and Jetstream. Jetstream is much more complex and powerful. However, for beginners, Breeze is more recommended. Okay, I'm going to install now Breeze using the following composer command. Okay, so run this. After this is run, we need to run PHP Artisan Breeze install, and then npm run dev and PHP Artisan migrate. Okay, this is done. So let's run PHP Artisan Breeze install. Then we need to run npm install and run dev. So npm install. That's going to take a couple of seconds. So I'm going to pause the recording and get back when this is actually finished. Now I'm going to run npm run dev. It's going to build some assets, CSS and JavaScript for me. And then we should be able to see login and registration on our website. So here we see login and registration. Click on the login. We see ugly page simply because the assets are not built yet. Okay, now it was built successfully. Reload the page, and that's the login screen. Go back, click on register. This is our registration. We can already register. I'm going to use my email and name and password, and I have been registered, and I'm also logged in. Okay, so if you want to have a deeper look in the Breeze, you can have a look in the documentation or explore what changes have been made in the project. So before you run actually PHP Artisan Breeze install, you can commit your project. And when you run that install, you can see the changes it's actually made. Okay, and in the roads right here, it created out PHP. And right here, you see all the endpoints related to Breeze login, registration, forgot password, reset password, verify email, and confirm password, and so on. Like everything what you need regarding authentication. Okay, so right now, it's time to actually implement the personal access token generation. So that's very simple. Actually, it's a CRUD type of thing, what we need to do. However, we're going to deal with the Sanctum personal access token. So the only thing I'm going to show you is the Sanctum documentation. Okay, if we go in the Laravel Sanctum, we see right here what is it's explained pretty well what is Sanctum, how it works. It's inspired by GitHub's personal access tokens, and it has examples and why it's useful and so everything basically you need. And there is installation instruction as well. However, if you follow me and the tutorial, this tutorial, Sanctum basically is already installed in your Laravel application. So it comes with the latest Laravel application. Okay, you don't need to run these commands. Okay, it's already run, it's there. Okay, what we need to do, however, is go inside the API roles, and we have right here middleware auth Sanctum. That's for the user. We don't need that at the moment. So in the middleware, I'm going to create a group after the middleware, and I'm going to take my code and put inside it. Okay, so using that approach, I am adding authentication to all my endpoints. Now, if I go in the Postman and try to make requests, no matter what request, I get unauthenticated. Okay, so that's because we didn't provide correct access token. So that's the thing what we need to do. So we need to generate that access token now and provide it inside the Postman so that the request is authenticated and we get images or process a Resize image or do anything in the API. Okay, so again, let's have a look in the documentation. So we need to generate token. That's what we need to do. All these things are already done, as I mentioned. So this is the thing what we need to do. So on the user, we need to run a create token. We give it a name, and then we take the plain text token. And then we need to iterate over our tokens to display to the user, just in case user wants to delete one token. Okay. The Sanctum, the tokens basically have its abilities as well, which are basically scopes or permissions, but we are not going to implement. That's more complex applications. If you want to give some permissions to your token, but restrict to do certain things, you can do that. We are not going to implement that right here. Okay, so what I want to do, go inside the resources, views, and here's the dashboard blade, which was actually created by that Breeze. Okay, and I'm going to actually modify right here and show personal access tokens. And I'm going to actually create also dashboard controller, which extends controller, and I am going to create a function dashboard right here, which will return view dashboard. Okay, right here we need to select the get the user's tokens as well and return, pass it into view. However, let's actually get this. Actually, I'm going to copy and paste because there are a lot of HTML related things. Okay, so I don't want to spend time on HTML, writing HTML. So this is just beyond of the scope of this tutorial. So I'm going to copy that dashboard blade and as well as the dashboard controller, but we're going to go through it and see what's down there. Okay. Okay, so here is the dashboard blade. We're going to go through that. And I'm going to copy dashboard controller content as well. Okay, let's start with the dashboard controller. We have dashboard method. We get the authenticated user and we get the user tokens and just give it to the dashboard. We have show token form, which simply renders token create form. We have a create token, which takes the token name, make sure that is processed, it's passed. We get the token name, and we call on the user, we call create token. That create token comes from the user model has API tokens trait. Okay, so then we create token and we take the plain text token from the created one and we just give it to the token show page. So you can only view that plain text token once it is created. You cannot see this later, okay, because it's encrypted and saved just like that in the database. All right, and we have delete token. We just get the token and delete that and redirect user to the dashboard. Okay, we need to do those things, but first of all, let's have a look in the dashboard view. So we modified this slightly. We added some texts. I added right here custom component button link. Inside the resources views components, there are components created by Breeze. And one of them is called button component. I just copied and pasted that and called link button component or button link. How is it called? It's called button link. So let's call it button link. However, inside the button link, that should be an anchor tag, not a button. Okay, that's what I changed. Then if the tokens is provided, we have some HTML, we have table, we iterate our tokens and display the token name, as well as the last used time when the token was used. And we have a delete button right here inside the form to make a post request on the token delete. Okay, pretty straightforward. If the tokens are not provided, if there are no tokens basically, then we write, you don't have any personal access tokens yet. So I save that, go in the dashboard and reload it. And we see right here, route is not defined. That's token show form. I'm going to actually go in the web PHP and I'm going to copy routes. So let's open web PHP. And you know what I'm going to do? Let's actually paste this right here. Inside route middleware auth, I'm going to create a group. Okay, and I'm going to put those routes right here. Okay, and I don't need that. I'm going to import my dashboard controller. Perfect. So now route is defined. We should be able to see dashboard. Here we see that. You don't have any personal access tokens yet. So I'm going to click on create new token. We're going to get an error because we don't have view, token create view. So I'm going to copy this HTML as well. And right here, I'm going to create token dash create blade PHP and paste the content right here. Okay, this simple form, very simple one with CSRF and label and input and button, and that's it. Okay, so reload the page and we see that form. So I'm going to call my token main, click on generate. It generates successfully. However, there's one more view missing, token show. So I'm going to take that and create inside views token show blade PHP. Okay, and what do we have? So nothing special. So whenever the token is created, it's passed to this view. Then right here, we print the token name and the actual token, plain text token inside the table, and that's it. So reload the page, continue, and right here we see main. So that's new token. Copy, see all tokens, go back, we see two main, because one was created when there was an error, the second one just right now. So now this CRUD is actually done. So we can call this postman token. Okay, just copy that, go in the postman, go in the collection edit, and right here, I'm going to provide the token. So you can put this in the initial value and in the current value as well. Okay, and in the authorization, choose bearer token and the variable for token. So that's it. We set the authorization on the collection, and all its requests will be will inherit that authorization from the request, from the collection. So now I make request and I get albums. So now authorization works fine. However, we need to modify the code so that we need to return only those albums which are assigned to that user. Okay. Let's have a look in the database. How many users do we have? We have only one user. Let's go in the albums, and I am going to set the user ID 1 for two of them. Let's open image manipulation as well, and I'm going to set the user ID for two of them. All right, now let's go in the album controller. And when we get all albums right here, I'm going to specify where. Okay, so we need right here request, illuminate HTTP request. I'm going to copy, and we have request here. We need request here as well. We have it here. We need here as well. So we need requests to be received everywhere. We need to take the user from the request and do some checkings. Okay, so get request here as well. We get here. We need it here as well. And here as well. Okay, so let's go back in the album controller. And inside the where, we write user ID of the album needs to be request user ID. Okay, and then we call paginate. So now let's call get album, and we see only two albums. Okay, totally there are three, but we only get two. Okay, not more, because we added that where condition. To store the album, we just need to save that in a save all in a data. Then inside the data for the user ID, we're going to specify request user ID. Okay, and we pass the data. So now whenever we make new album, cars, for example, it's going to have user ID right here. Okay, so again, go in the album controller, and let's see. For the show, we need to check if user actually has permission to view that album. So if the user is owner of that album. So if request user ID does not equal to album user ID, then we are going to return abort status code 300 and 403, and message will be unauthorized. Okay, and I'm going to copy this and put this in the update as well, and in the destroy as well. Now, let's try to get a single album. Make request, we get that album. Let's try to get an album which doesn't belong to me. For example, this one, ID4. Specify ID4, make request, I get unauthorized. Okay, perfect. Let's go now in the image manipulation controller. And in the index, we need to add where user condition as well. However, when we get by album, I'm going to check if the album user ID doesn't equal to the request user ID, then return unauthorized. And I need to do this thing. No, that's basically all. So I need to do this thing when showing for returning a single image. However, instead of album, we're going to use image. Copy this. And for destroy as well. Okay, for show. For resize, we need to provide right here request user ID. And right here we have the album ID. Now this is the case, we need to select the album, find all album ID, and then I'm going to paste that if the request user ID doesn't match to the album user ID, then return unauthorized. Okay, so if I go in the Postman and try to resize an image with the album ID on which I don't have access. On fourth album, I should get unauthorized. Okay. However, if I save this in album 2, that works fine and I get the response. Okay, so that's how we do the security thing. So we have implemented resize. Getting by album, we check if album actually belongs to the user. We did that. We need to get the image manipulations by the user ID. So that's the thing what we need to do. So inside where we add user ID, comma, request user ID. Okay. Now if I go in the Postman and get all images, I only have, how many? 1, 2, and 3. Let's go in the database. In the image manipulation, we have 3. Let me just set those two to null. And now I have only 1 image, and that's it. So if I try to delete an image which does not belong to me, I can delete 6.1, but I cannot actually delete the with ID 1, for example. So I get unauthorized. So that security level, security checks are done in every action right here. So far, everything looks good. I'm going to remove that update image manipulation request. That's not necessary anymore. And my PHP Storm complains about the return thing. So it thinks that it sees that the different return type is specified, but different things return. So I'm going to hit Alt and Enter to fix this for me. Okay. Okay, I think that's it. So we have the fully functional API with authorization, with token generation, and everything. So if I go in the dashboard, I see that the token was last used 55 seconds ago. If I just delete that token and go in the Postman, I won't be able to make requests anymore. All right. Thumbs up if you enjoy the video. Okay, if you are using Git, you probably need to clone the project using SSH. So let's go through SSH access, and I'm going to actually copy this and open my SSH client. So I'm basically using Git and Bash. So that's my SSH client, and I need to basically when I try to access using SSH, I need to enable first of all SSH access. And when I do that, I have to provide my public key. My public key is the key which is used for encrypting the data. So basically, when you generate keys, you generate public and private keys. So public keys can be inserted in any website. It's public, it's not secret. And you put on the website, you have the private key, and then the exchange between your computer and the hosting server is done through this public-private key. So they are paired, they are uniquely matched to each other, and just like that, you can also authenticate using public-private keys. Okay, I'm gonna provide my public key right here. If you don't have your public key, you can generate through SSH key gen command -o. Okay, that's going to ask you to generate your public private keys right here in the following directory. I actually already have that generated, so I'm not going to generate. Instead, I'm going to open from my SSH folder id rsa.pub. That's my public key. I'm going to copy this and paste this right here and add. So now I can actually access, copy this, paste right here. Yes. Okay, so here I'm accessing, I'm already accessing my my account, my server, okay, and I can type pwd and that shows me the current directory ls-la. That shows me the files and folders, and I can actually see these files and folders right here as well. So those are the files and folders I see. Okay, I have composer command already available. I have git command already available. I just need to clone the project in a correct directory. Okay, I'm going to actually take my existing project, this one, and clone it. So I need to go under domains folder. You can actually, if you don't want to clone, you can take the project and upload it right here, okay? But make sure you call the project My Images Processing. So now what I want to do is I want to actually delete that default PHP. Okay, I don't want that, and I'm going to delete that public HTML as well. Okay, and now this folder is absolutely empty. Okay, I can also delete that, but when I clone the project, if the folder is empty, it's going to clone inside the empty folder as well. So git clone URL, and I'm going to clone this in the following folder. So where's rename? So I'm going to copy this and paste right here, hit enter. It's going to clone the project right here in this folder. Now I can access the folder and I see all the project files right here. So if you are going to upload through this tool, this file manager, you're going to do in the exact same location. Okay, right here. And now if we have a look at our website, it's not going to work anymore. This happens because Hostinger searches for public HTML folder right here. We don't have public HTML, however, we have public folder right here. Okay, so we cannot simply rename this public folder. Instead, I'm going to show you how you can do that. So let's go in My Images Processing, and ls-la shows files and folders. I'm going to actually create a symbolic link from public into public HTML. ln-s public into public HTML. Okay, ls-la. And right here we see public HTML, which corresponds to public. Okay, and we can see this symbolic link right here as well. It shows public corresponds to public, but that don't pay attention to that public, so it sees that there is a symbolic link to public. And right here, we see something else. We don't see Hostinger nice 404, we see HTTP error 500, which is actually good. That means that my Laravel application started working. However, there are a couple of things to adjust. First of all, we have to adjust the env file. So I'm going to actually copy env example into env. Okay, and then I'm going to edit my env. Hit I on your keyboard. I'm going to leave everything except the domain. So that's the domain we have so far. Okay, and as for the database, I'm going to use SQLite. Okay, SQLite. And I'm going to comment everything right here. So host, port, database, username, and password. Okay, fine. Now I need to run Composer install. Okay, Composer install is actually done. So one important thing, if you decide to upload your project files through this file manager, it might take some time. It might take a lot of time. Okay, because it has to upload a lot of files and folders right here. And so Composer install does slightly faster. So if I refresh right here, I see now vendor folder, which is created by the Composer. Now I need to generate key, PHP artisan key colon generate dash dash ANSI. Okay, the key has been generated successfully. PHP artisan migrate. And that's gonna migrate the files, but we have an error. That's simply because we don't have database SQLite created. Okay, we can go in the database right here and create a new file called database.sqlite. Just create, or I'm going to cancel and show how you can do this using terminal. So I'm going to call touch command, touch database SQLite. So that's going to create that file. Now open the file manager and refresh, and we see SQLite right here. Okay, perfect. Now I can run migrate, and the migrations have been successfully run, and we can check our website. Fingers crossed, reload, and we see website up and running. We can click on register. We are registered and logged in. We can click on generate new token, copy that token, open the Postman, specify the token, specify the domain as well, and create an album. For Linux, we created that. Let's get my albums. I have only one. Let's resize an image in the album 1. The image has been resized. Let's get my images. Everything is working perfectly. So we have all the tokens. We can revoke the token. We see that the token was last used 5 seconds ago. We can delete that token if we don't want that anymore. And we're going to see unauthorized error right here. And our domain with SSL is up and running with our Laravel REST API. All right, guys, that's it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, leave a like. Also, leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. If you're new to my channel and enjoyed the video and you want to see more from me, just subscribe and enable notifications. If you decide to go with the hosting or services, use the coupon code TheCodeHolic. That's it today from my side. Thanks for watching and see you in the next time.